everyone. Happy Tuesday. I am so glad you are back with me in the echoey room. I ordered a tree. It lights up. It's very cool. And I also ordered some lanterns. So it's gonna come together. It's getting here. It's getting here from China. So it's gonna be a minute, but it's getting here. Okay. So let's just dive into what I am very, very excited about today and what I sat down to make one journal page with Spirit about, and it turned into 8 journal pages. And that was kind of crazy, but it is actually really amazing. And I'm very excited to walk through it with you guys. So let's jump right in. So I'm gonna call this series of journal pages just like Spirit. Is that you? So it's Spirit, is that you? And it is 5 steps to kind of walk you through, let's just call it reestablishment of these energy connections, reestablishment of this communication bridge that we have with Spirit, and kind of just reestablishing the ground, the base level, the foundation that we are going to build our spiritual practice, our spiritual community, our spiritual gifts off of. Because in all of the shifting that we have going on, right, we had all these timelines doing timeline things and they were all kind of stacking up. And I was comparing them to kind of like a deck of playing cards. And you wanted to put the playing cards that you wanted front and center in your life on the top of the deck. And that has been happening for a minute. It's been happening for a minute. But we're kind of getting to the point where Spirit just actually this morning, time is very weird. Spirit this morning told me to stop calling them timelines, to call them existences, which I think is a sign for something really cool. And again, let's use this opportunity right now to establish the type of existence that we want to exist in this quote unquote new earth. So to do that, back to basics. We're going to go back to basics. I know we do it all the time, but it is so important. Like the foundations of it just come up over and over and over again. And the more that you can roll with it, the more you can reestablish your connections, the more you can just bounce back, the crazier things can get and the more fun things can get and the more wild things can get and the more experiences that you can just experience. And it is amazing, but it is a lot of work. So I have made some journal pages with some steps to hopefully make it easier. Let me show you. Okay, so the whole series is Spirit. Is that you? You there still? Are we listening? Okay. So the first step of that is using the pushback method. And the pushback method is a favorite of mine. I harp on it all the time. I think it is an amazing like cheat code, an amazing loophole. I think that you can get some of the best information about yourself, about Spirit, about if this is a safe thing, if this is a true thing, if it feels off. Our bodies hold so much information that we are just not taught how to access, right? So the pushback method is a really, really easy way to just kind of start feeling where those pushbacks are, feeling where exactly our bodies are trying to give us sort of some information without completely shutting down our train of thought. Let's put it that way. Okay, the next one is called learning about yourself, or as I've also referred to it, learning what you sound like. Because so often, and I know especially for me, I had no idea when I was a kid. I would have all of these thoughts racing through my head and it felt like I couldn't control it. It felt like they were out of control and there was never quiet and there was never silence and I was never just left in peace, right? It felt like constant thoughts through my head. My ears were ringing all the time. That was probably something else, but it was not until I fully started to really look into what are my thoughts? What actually are my thoughts that I'm having myself and what is outside influence? And at the time, I didn't realize the outside influence was going to be Spirit in such a big way, but it ended up being a lot of Spirit communication that way as well as, influence from the media and influence from like traumas and inner child and things like that. So learning what you sound like versus what all of these different types of outside influences are contributing to your brain can be a game changer in so many ways. So we're going to go through just a couple quick things that can help you just very gently start that process. From there, we're going to move on to human versus fuller self or spirit. Now, fuller self is just the new way that I have decided to start calling our higher selves, our whole orange, our complete consciousness, however you think about it. I've switched my verbiage, my wording to fuller self, because every time I go to check in with somebody's higher self, be it my higher self, somebody else's higher self, every time I check in, they are bigger and bigger and bigger. And so higher self just didn't seem to cut it anymore. The capabilities that these beings have, that we have inside of us, this access, this power, this connection, it's huge. I can't even explain it, right? Because they are getting to the point, our fuller selves, our higher selves, our complete consciousness, they are getting to the point that they engulf the entire sky. If I were to look up, I would see nothing but the energy of this being in front of me. And I'm truly getting lost in it as if I am a tiny human floating in outer space, floating in the galaxy. Like, these are massive beings, and they are here and they're connected to us and we are them. And it is amazing, amazing, amazing. That was weird, but it's whatever, however you say it, it was fantastic. Okay. So we are going to get into the difference between our human self and our fuller self, or our whatever other spirit we are communicating with at that moment. From there, we're going to move on to what I call catching the thought, which is just like a really funny way of saying, hey, pay attention to that thought that you have, because I think so often we get lost in the thoughts. We don't examine the actual thought that we're having. We don't examine where it came from, if it was us, if it was from outside influence. We don't really like sit down and look at it with kind of an analytical point of view, which I'm not saying to overanalyze your thoughts. I'm saying this is just one tool that we have in our toolbox, and this one happens to use a more, I think it's a more analytical view. And then we get into identifying the spirit, and that is a page that hopefully lets us use all of the information that we've gathered, kind of that more analytical data sense, to kind of just take some really educated guesses. I don't know why I did quotation marks. No, we're doing educated guesses. That's the whole point, right? So to take all of that information and make some educated guesses, we know what we're doing, to really just kind of like figure out what is going on. And then there's a bonus pushback page to help you kind of double check those answers. Are you ready? Okay, here is our first page, the pushback method. Now, the pushback method is essentially feeling into the words that you are saying. And I say that in quotation marks because you can say them out loud, or you can say them in your head, or you can write them down, however you want to do it. But you're paying really close attention to the words that you are saying in an attempt to find if there is any resistance that comes up. So the way the pushback method works is you think of a sentence, you think of a statement that you know is true. And that's kind of the trickiest part of this, is just really finding a statement that is true across the board. For example, I really, really recommend avoiding names, because my human name is Rebecca. But if I don't say my human name is Rebecca, if I just say my name is Rebecca, all the versions of myself are not named Rebecca. Like, there's other names out there. And so depending on how you view yourself, how your higher views the whole system, depending on a whole bunch of details that are individual to each of us, some of these things can change per the different versions of us. So I recommend, if you are doing this for the first time, to use something that is very strictly human about you. So for example, human Rebecca that you see in front of you has brown hair. Okay, so that's my statement. Human Rebecca has brown hair. If you feel like you are the human, you can say, I have brown hair. Okay, it just, again, depends on what you feel. So trust yourself. Y'all got this. It's not that serious. Okay, so human Rebecca has brown hair. I say that, and as I say it, I pay attention to every word. Human Rebecca has brown hair. And I know that's annoying that I said it like that, but I did it for a reason, because that's how you want to start. Because when we get to the lie, right, like two truths and a lie, when we get to the lie, we are going to look for that resistance either between the words or like surrounding the word that is probably not true. So let me show you that. Human Rebecca has brown hair. Now we're going to do the lie. Human Rebecca has purple hair. Human Rebecca has purple hair. Y'all, and I exaggerated it, but I didn't even exaggerate it that much, because it really is weird. There's a pushback there when I get to say the word purple. Human Rebecca has hair is true, right? It's just that word purple that makes it not completely correct. And so not only can you use this to find out a whole bunch of information, for example, at the bonus page, we use it to find out information about a spirit, but it is a really good tool to use to find out information about yourself. For example, whenever I have a really tricky decision to make, I will use the pushback method. And with each sentence, I will ask myself how that sentence made me feel, right? So if I have to decide, am I going to start eating only mangoes, or am I going to start eating only oranges? I'm going to say, I'm going to start eating only mangoes, and I'm going to feel into it. I'm going to feel into my chest. I'm going to feel into my stomach. I'm going to feel into my shoulders, into my head. I am going to feel into the words, right? I'm going to feel into it. I'm going to feel how it feels. And then when I say the oranges part, eating too many oranges automatically makes my stomach kind of sour. And so that's the first thing that I feel. And even though that could be a Pavlovian response, which is essentially where your brain has been trained to have a body reaction in a certain way, hence the dogs that salivated when they heard the bell, the treat bell or whatever it was. You guys can look it up. It's kind of fucked up, but whatever. It's over there. Okay, so it could be a Pavlovian response, but that's still information. That is still information that our body is trying to give us that could be extremely important in making decisions, right? Because if I eat only oranges and I get a stomach ache and I can't eat any more oranges, I'm kind of fucked, right? And probably mangoes are going to give me a stomach ache too. I know they give me a stomach ache too. I eat mangoes to the point of a stomach ache, but y'all get what I'm going with this, right? Y'all just ignore me. Why am I on here talking about mangoes? Because they're delicious. That's why. Mangoes are a gift from the gods. But why do y'all come here to hear me ramble? I love it. Okay, so back to the pushback method. The trickiest part is choosing the statement that you're going to use. But once you've had that statement, write it down, right? Because one of the feedbacks that I get, and I totally get why, because I struggle with this on multiple occasions, but some of the feedback that I get about this method, about the whole spirit, is it you? Are you there? The whole shebang, right? Is that it is really, really hard to hold the spirit communication in your head and kind of the questions and the analyzing and the analytical bit in your head at the same time. And that is very, very true. Oftentimes I will question spirit with a partner, let's put it that way, because it is easier for me to hold the connection and have somebody else tell me what to ask than it is for me to hold the connection and try to remember what I need to ask. So it's very, very legit, and I get it. Okay, so write it down and take it step by step. So once you've chosen your statement, write your statement down. Then say it to yourself. Say it step by step. It doesn't matter if you forget it, you wrote it down. And I know it seems like, but you just said it, you just wrote it down, you won't forget it. Y'all, spirit is weird in the brain. Okay, so write it down, do yourself the favor, and then say it. And really take a moment at each word, especially if this is the first few times you're doing it. Really take a moment at each word. Once you have it, circle the words that you feel that pushback on, that hesitation, where it feels weird, where it doesn't flow, where it's not smooth, where whatever that weird little thing that doesn't fit, that makes your skin itch a little bit. Maybe that's just me, but wherever you feel that skin itching word at, you're going to circle it. And if you're me, you're going to cross it off and you're going to like zigzag over it, because again, it makes my skin itch, but hopefully it's better for you. And then once you've identified these kind of problem words, just take some other guesses. Think of some alternate words that you can try. So if we go back to the hair example, human Rebecca's hair is purple, feels really wrong. It feels like it clashes. Human Rebecca's hair is green, feels also not right, but it feels better than purple. It feels a little bit smoother, even though it's not right. And so what I will do is I will just start guessing. I'll start guessing every color that I can think of in an attempt to kind of get as close as possible to the vibration, to the right word, to the closest translation, because there's plenty of times where there's not going to be an English word or even a human word for what they are trying to describe, but getting as close to kind of the right translation, as close to the vibration that you can think of, that you do know of, that exists in the human language, can be very, very helpful. And it also can cut down on a ton of just blocks and miscommunications and a whole bunch of nonsense down the way. Once I've picked my alternative words, then I'm going to place them in the sentence one by one. Just do it one by one, because you want to really focus on what the word is that is not correct, right? So one by one, we're going to really put them into the sentences and we're going to feel into them. And if you get one that feels correct, that is amazing. Write that shit down. But if you get one that feels closer, you can write that down, make notes about it. I have left you plenty of space to do all of the writing so that it can try to hold the connection with your brain and kind of analyze and flip back and forth. Fingers crossed it works. This is a really kind of tricky method for me. It is much easier for me to flip-flop in my brain than it is to flip-flop from my brain to paper. But I am not everybody. I am trying to help as many people as I can. So hopefully this method makes a difference, even if you just use it at first to kind of get comfortable with it, and then it'll come naturally and you can just do it quickly in your brain also. I know I'm going fast. I'm really trying to fly through this because we have a lot of pages and I'm really trying to keep the video like normal length. So on to the next page. We're going to call this one Learning About You, or Learning What You Sound Like. Learning about you, or learning what you sound like, is one of the, I think, biggest foundational kind of bricks that we can lay, because it can be so important on so many different fronts. It can help bring up shadow work. It can help us identify our thoughts versus the outside influences. It can help us look into situations. And when I finally was able to start slowing all of those thoughts down and really kind of just spending time with each one of them, that is when I realized that a lot of the like weird stuff that would flash in my brain was visions from spirit, but they were so jumbled up. They were such a mess. I couldn't make sense of any of them. So learning what you sound like and starting there can take you on a very, very far path down the way. It can take you into places that are amazing, and it can really be unique to each kind of situation and circumstance because it's a very kind of common denominator way to get people where they need to go. Because again, it brings up so much. It brings up so much in so many different areas of your life, human and spirit. So for this page, you can use the same statement, the same sentence from the first one. So I can say, human Rebecca has brown hair. And what I'm going to do from that point after I write it down, right, because we're writing it down, human Rebecca has brown hair, I am going to look at the words that I picked. I say the word human. That is my word choice. I know enough, I've talked to enough spirits that not all spirits say the word human. Some spirits have more personality than others, let's put it that way. And they will have very specific tones and cadences and way that they speak. Not all of them. Guides and stuff tend to be a little trickier. They tend to be more within our own energy and they can sound more like ourselves. So that can be a little bit tricky. But remember, for this case, we're looking at ourselves. What do I sound like? So I know that human Rebecca says the word human to kind of say what we're talking about. That's one. So I am going to write common word choice human. So ideally, you're going to take these pages step by step, and it would be a really great idea, hint, hint, to spend a little bit of extra time on each page. So instead of just doing one statement, I recommend doing a few statements and really getting comfortable in that pushback method. And then going on to the next one, then going on to the learning about yourself. But I'm only going to do one example for the sake of time. So pretend that I have other examples. If I've ever talked to you about this before, pull up some of that other examples you've got bookmarked in your brain, and we're going to write down your common word choices, as many of those 6 spaces that you can fill in. Now, I would describe the tone of that sentence as kind of analytical again, right? Because I'm saying human, and human is like kind of more of a sciencey word, right? Versus like if somebody were to say the daughters of Gaia. Like that is way different than saying the word human, right? But the daughters of Gaia is more this like beautiful poetic type of way of saying, human girls, human daughters, human women, whatever, the daughters of Gaia, right? Versus humans, right? There's a huge difference there. So try to find your common tones. My common tones when I talk to spirit does tend to be analytical, and I talk about needing to gather data. I talk about catching the vibes. I talk about seeing what's going on with everybody else. I have like a rule of 3 where if it comes up 3 times, I have a whole system, okay? And it's very analytical in my brain. But the tone can be any number of things. I have also included kind of a tones list of words that you can look at to help you kind of feel into it, feel into the word itself, look up what the meaning is, because I know there's a lot of words on here. Look up what the meaning is, see if it resonates with you, see if it connects with you. If it doesn't, that's probably not the word. And if it does, then that can be really, really powerful. Then you can also look at the cadence of the statement, the cadence of the words. For me, I always emphasize the word human. It's just the way I say it for whatever reason. It's the emphasis that I'm putting on this is the version of me I am talking about. This is the version of me that we are paying attention to, right? So I say human Rebecca has brown hair, right? Like I say human Rebecca. It's so weird, right? Like other people just say, yeah, human Rebecca has brown hairs, right? And they put the emphasis, they put the inflections different ways. And that is a really small but really powerful note that you can make, a little bookmark that you will see come up, and why we want to make a note of it in a few minutes. But just figure these things out about yourself. Play around with it. Play with what feels right. Play with what feels off. Play with what feels like it's calling you home, what feels like it's pushing you away, right? Just sit in it and figure out what you like. Figure out what you don't like. Don't take it too seriously. Trust your intuition. Take as much time on it as you need. And then, of course, make as many notes about yourself as you can. Please write it down. It will be very, very helpful both in the next steps and just in your general spiritual journey. Okay, next page. Human, there's that word human again, right? It's a favorite of mine. Human versus fuller self, or versus whatever spirit that you're trying to figure out or you're trying to talk to or whatever. I have at the bottom of this page listed a whole bunch of kind of just ideas to get your brain turning. I don't want you to take this page too seriously. I know looking at it, we can kind of have like some school flashbacks and we have to fill it in and it's a really big deal and we're going to fail. No, there's no failing. None of that, okay? This is simple. This is whatever you can think of, and if you can't think of anything, you just bookmark it for later, okay? But I have done some just the ideas that both I think are common themes that I see, and then also recommendations from Spirit. I have listed kind of just some questions, some things to think about on the bottom. So for me, let me just give you an example. Okay, human me. Human me's favorite color is purple. So I'm gonna put purple under human because it's for sure. But sky also often comes in purple and black, and I like black too. So I'm gonna just put purple and black. Maybe I put it in both. Maybe I put it in human, both, and fuller, whatever. Sky has also appeared in red, and that is not really, even though I'll wear red and I kind of like it, it's not really like doesn't hit home for me the way that like purple, right? Purple is my thing. Purple's my thing across the board. Red, sometimes my thing, not my thing across the board. So I'm going to put that in fuller, right? Because that's just another thing. What's another good one? Common tastes. I have one fuller that brings me the most delicious little tickle in my mouth that I have ever felt. It tastes like every dessert and every like just adult situation. I'm not going to say it because I don't know who's listening, but every dessert mixed with adult situation that you can think of. And it only comes with this one version of myself. It doesn't come with the other one. So I'm going to put that one in the fuller spirit, right? So you can break it up. You can separate it. You can lump them together. You can do whatever you need to do. Print this off as many times as you need and just use it as a tool, one of many tools to help you figure out what is you, what is a combination of you and your fuller, or of you and this energy that you're kind of channeling, and what really truly is them, right? Because I like the word human, that's what I use, but if I'm channeling Gaia or I'm channeling Ashra, they are much more poetic about it, right? So I'm going to put that in the spirit section because I'm channeling them, and that's something that can help me figure out where human Rebecca ends and where these goddesses begin, right? So just general, whatever works for you, use this page too, however you need to use it, but keep in mind the focus is still going to be learning about yourself at the end of it. This next page is called Catching the Thought, and this is where I think we can really start to make some progress. If you are somebody who is really trying to just improve their spirit communication, if you know your guides are there and you can kind of get feelings, but you're not getting clear communication, you're really having a hard time getting words, you're trying to figure out, where your energy stops and where the guides come in and things like that. Because like I said, the guide vibration, the ancestor vibration, any energetic being, any spirit that is on your energetic team that spends a lot of time kind of in your energy kind of starts to feel like you, right? So if you go to a foreign country and you spend enough time there, you're going to start to assimilate to that country. And it kind of is like the same thing with energy. If you spend enough time in a certain energy, your energy starts to assimilate to that. I hope I'm using that word correctly. My brain has been really funny lately. And I've been thinking I'm saying a different word, and I'm not saying the word I thought. So if that's wrong, ignore me. Just ignore me. Don't even tell me. Just ignore me, right? But if you spend enough time somewhere, you start to adapt, okay? So spirits and guides and teams in your energy, they start to have little bits of your energy mixed into it. And it's kind of, I don't want to call them like undertones, but it's almost like a coating of your energy. And it is really helpful for a ton of different reasons, mainly because if you are somebody who is like really sensitive to energy, and I know there's a lot of you in here, if you could constantly feel beings on you all the time, especially as like you're kind of coming out of the childhood phase and trying to really navigate the world, on top of feeling like all of these beings that are also watching you all of the time, that could be really way more than it has to be, right? Because being a teenager is already hard enough. So it has a ton of different reasons. That's one example, but it can be tricky kind of figuring out what is your guide communication, what is the ancestor communication, and what are your thoughts. So this is where we start to kind of see that all to come together. So the first step in catching the thought is to literally catch that random thought. And again, this can be the hardest step sometimes. We get on autopilot and we just have these thoughts racing through us, and to stop, catch that singular thought and spend a minute in that singular thought can be very, very tricky. And again, it can be one of the cases where it's almost like we're having this communication and we can't disconnect to analyze it. So hopefully these pages help with that. So the trick here is when this random thought comes into your brain, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I get these thoughts that I know are not me. Like they don't sound anything like me. They are not my tone. They are not my cadence. They're not my word choice. I have done all of the other pages. I know they're not me, right? So I'm going to catch that thought. And that's the thought I'm going to put on the paper. The one that is like, what? That's weird. What is that, right? And again, you can use the pushback method at any point in all of this, but we'll get to that bonus page in a second. You're going to catch that thought. You're going to put it on the page. I'm going to look at the word choice first and foremost, because that's going to be, is that me? If it has not a single one of my words in it, y'all, I talk so much and I say the same words over and over again. If it doesn't have a single one of my words in it, it ain't gonna be me, right? So I'm gonna look at the word choices. I'm going to pull out the words that very clearly are not me. I'm gonna do the same thing with the tone, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the cadence. And if you can't fill in all four, what I have, lines, 4 or 5 lines on each one, that's fine. Just do as many as you can, because sometimes some random thoughts are going to be trickier than others. Like, for real, guys, it's not always as cut and paste as easy as this seems, but that's why we spend a lot of time on each one. That's why we get really comfortable on each one. That's why we get into that muscle memory. We're training our brain to kind of realize when we just have these thoughts speeding through, our brain can realize that. We can train our brain to kind of bring it back and catch that thought. And then from there, you can use this page. So fingers crossed, this helps us all kind of slow our brains down a little bit, because especially right now, I think we need it. That's really all there is to this page, because the simple act of catching that thought and of looking at the word choice and the tones and the cadences, that can be really, really powerful in itself. And then the act of that decision at the bottom, does this thought seem like you? Yes or no? If you have to leave it unanswered, that's fine. But if you are able to answer it, that final decision of this thought actually doesn't seem like me can be really powerful. It can trigger a whole bunch of next steps, let's put it. And then, of course, any notes. Please write down anything that comes to your brain, because chances are it wasn't on accident. If that random thing popped into your brain when you were analyzing this word or analyzing the tone, if this random thing keeps coming up every time you look at this word, write that down. It's probably not on accident. And then if it doesn't sound like you, take a guess. Take a guess to who it might be, because even if your guess is wrong, your guess is probably on the right track. Even if that is not true at all, you're at least pointing in this direction instead of that direction, which, knowing which direction to walk in from a standing point can be half of the battle right there. I don't know how to explain that in spirit because I don't actually move, but y'all get where I'm going with this, I hope. If not, again, just ignore me. That brings us to our last page and also our bonus pushback method page. I think that they just go really, really hand in hand, very PB&J together, right? Like very Reese's peanut butter cups. They just go really well together, okay? So, identifying the spirit. Y'all caught the thought. You caught that thought. You said, these aren't my words. You said, those are not my tones. You said, I don't talk like that. Okay, you said it wasn't me. You're going to write that same thought down right here. And then we're going to go even more into it. And this is just a starting place. This is just a place to hopefully get you somewhere else. Because from this point on, from this page on, from that point in your spirit discovery, anything is possible, okay? So let's go through this page really quick. Sorry, y'all. I had to pick my kids up from the bus stop, messed my hair up. Okay, we're good. I'm back. We're good. You still here? I knew you would wait for me. Okay, identifying spirit. We have our thought up there. This is the same one that you grabbed and pulled out and you said, who the fuck are you, right? Like, we're like, something ain't right there, okay? So where in your brain do you feel it? I always feel angels at the very back, and I hate it. There's so many reasons I don't mess with angels, but I hate the way they tickle up the back of my brain. My higher selves, my fuller selves, specifically when they were my higher selves, would always come through the middle. They would always come from inside me. Other spirits often come from out and go into my brain, but whenever it was my fuller, whenever it was my energy, it would come from inside me and go out versus coming from the outside and going in. I hope that makes sense. But I know a lot of people don't actually feel it in their head the same way that I do. A lot of people, or I've often heard other people describe it as feeling it in their body, right? So maybe this shoulder tingles with that kind of being, and your left kneecap hurts with that kind of being, right? Like, whatever your identification system is, hopefully it's not with pain, because if that is, you need to renegotiate that. But whatever your identification system is for the type of energy that's coming in, you can mark that on the body. Also of note, if you look at all those silly faces, if you identify, you don't even have to identify with words, but you can use an emotion wheel. But if you identify even with one of those faces, if you feel an angry face, like the angry face feels like it fits, but you don't know why, I am going to circle that angry face, and then I'm also going to go to that body and I'm going to feel where I feel that anger coming from. If it's coming from my chest, it almost feels personal. If it's coming from my head, it almost feels like a injustice, right? So where that energy is coming from, where those emotions are coming from within your body can be just as important as well. Now, as you are going through these feelings, as you're going through these emotions, as you're really sitting in that thought that you grabbed, I want you to pay attention to everything. I want you to pay attention to the smells, to the shadow work that's coming up, to the inner child stuff that's coming up, to any tastes that are coming up, to any visions that are coming up. If anything is coming up while you are trying to kind of sit in this thought, while you're trying to kind of identify this energy, that is worth noting. So I have those lines under, does anything come up? Does anything at all? Just not jot down, write down. I don't know what's wrong with me. Just write down anything that comes up. And then also random guesses. If you have a random guess, if for some reason you just can't get the word spirit guide out of your head, even though you don't really think it's a spirit guide, if for whatever reason you just can't get it out of your head, write it down in the guess. Go back and use that pushback method and just verify. And maybe you can figure out through the pushback method, maybe it is a spirit guide, but maybe you had some other part of that sentence wrong, right? So write it down, because again, one of the really, really tricky parts about this is maintaining that connection while also trying to use like your conscious brain. So write it down so you don't go back and kick yourself about it later. So you were just writing down anything and everything that comes to mind, no matter how crazy, no matter how much it doesn't make sense. You are for sure trying to leave room in your brain for what you don't know. Because if there's no room in your brain, spirit can't tell you anything new, right? So if you think you know and you're so sure you know and you just need to figure out this one part, but that one part won't come, try to go back to the beginning. Try to reevaluate what you think you know. It's one of the most annoying things that I have to experience. It's one of the most annoying things to teach because it is just so annoying to have to experience. But always go back and re-verify everything that you think you know. And then we can use all of this and talk about that bonus pushback method page. Now, the first pushback page is geared more towards learning about ourselves, but this bonus pushback method page is geared more towards trying to get an answer to a question, whether that be who is the spirit or like, what are they here to teach me? Whatever your question is, right? So you're going to write down the question that you want answered first. You're just going to write down, even if you can't form a question, write down any holes that you are noticing, write down what's not feeling right, write down whatever you can. But if you can form an actual question, there is power in that. So write down whatever you can and use that to get your question, because the question, I highly recommend having a formed question with words to take to spirit, because it's a lot harder for spirit. They're really trying to like not let me share the little cheat code with you. It is a lot harder for spirit to lie to you, especially with the pushback method, if you have very, very clear defined choice words. If every word that you choose to use in this statement has clearly been defined between you and spirit previously, it is very, very hard for them to work around the truth when you have very clear, defined, and very consciously chosen words. Just do with that what you will. So now hopefully you have a clear question and you're going to turn that question into a statement, right? This is where we were like, human Rebecca has purple hair, human Rebecca has brown hair, right? That's your statement. But you're going to take your question, whatever you want to answer. For example, if I want to say, hey, who is human Rebecca's hire? I would just take a guess. Human Rebecca's hire is a Pavlovian dog. Does it feel right? Does it feel wrong? Let's find out. So right away, I'm feeling the words human Rebecca and dog. Like there's a huge disconnect there. Like it feels like heartburn. It's gross. I don't like it, right? So I'm going to get rid of the human Rebecca part. I'm just going to say part of Rebecca's energy is a dog. Well, okay, part of Rebecca's energy is a dog. Doesn't feel exactly true, but it feels like it could be true. Okay, so I'm just going to start taking some guesses at this point. And then I'm going to take those guesses and I'm going to write them down in the form of a new statement, right? So part of Rebecca's energy is a dog. Is a dog feels kind of weird. So I'm just going to switch it up. I'm going to say part of Rebecca's energy was a dog. Ooh. Part of Rebecca's energy was a dog. Do you hear that? Do you hear how it flows and it smooths? We are onto something there. Under those new statement parts, I have two sections. One says, who could it be? You can make this anything you want, right? So I've geared this page into trying to figure out who those other voices are, right? Or who that energy is that feels close but not quite right. But you can cross that off and you can write down anything that you want. So if I were to do part of Rebecca's energy was a dog, then I kind of want to know, well, how long ago was that, right? So I'm going to cross off who could it be, and I'm going to write how long ago, and I'm just going to take some guesses. I'm going to take those guesses, and I'm going to form those new statements, and I'm going to use the pushback method there. And anything that comes up while I'm trying to work through that, I'm not going to like rabbit hole. I'm not going to sidebar it. I'm just going to write it down. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to finish the pushback method. I'm going to take the information from that and that other little bit of information that I wrote down. I'm going to look at it all together with my conscious brain because I'm not channeling at this exact moment. And then I'm going to decide my next steps. Fingers crossed, this gets everybody to whatever next step they want to be at. Fingers crossed. I'm really rooting for us. Now, the very bottom little bit of this page says, what is one way that everything could be different? Now, I included this one because, again, it is really, really hard for Spirit to give you information if you think you already know. If you don't have room in your head for whatever new information you need to know to figure out this next part, is going to be really, really hard to get you onto this next part. So this bottom, what is one way everything could be different? I want you to think outside the box, like way outside the box. Like you probably can't even make this up if you tried outside the box, right? Okay, so previously, part of Rebecca's energy was a dog. Okay, that is all well and good. How could that be different? How could I take my pushback method statement that I know is true, that I've checked with the pushback method? How could it be different, right? How could it be something that is both true, that has been verified by me, and completely the opposite of whatever I think it could be? And honestly, like I'm going to have to sit down and think about that one because like I said, most of these things that pop into your head when you're trying to think outside of the box were not by accident. Okay, that is all I have for you today. Thank you for hanging around. Thank you for sticking with me through that. Hopefully it made sense. Hopefully these pages get you to wherever your goals are. Hopefully they start whatever the process is to get you there because, like I said, there are a lot of common themes coming up. The theme of establish what you want in your new existence, lay those cards, stack those cards the way you want, reestablish your connections, reestablish your boundaries, reestablish your energy bridges, reestablish, reaffirm, everything. Now is the time to make your statements, to make your manifestations, and to make it real life. And I am super excited on that note. There is a lot of really, really fun stuff that we are in the process of getting the temple involved with, getting going with the temple, offering through the temple, so much stuff. And in that process, my personal account, Bruja Bones, my time and my energy is shifting more and more to the temple stuff. We are in the very early stages of developing a spiritual 101 class to be offered through the temple. And so as all of these things and as my community gathers and as I just have more and more people available and ready and willing and just in my corner, which feels amazing, I will be shifting, you guys have probably already seen it, my energy slowly away from my personal account to the temple stuff because that is where I feel like I can help the most people. That is where I feel like I can make the most impact. And that is where I feel like my energy can be spread the farthest. And I'm really trying to just be very delicate, very careful with where my energy goes, both in my human life and in my spirit life, because you have to be balanced and you have to be able to roll with the punches and you have to be able to flow. And in order to do any of those things, you have to be rested. You have to be taking care of yourself. You have to be giving your body, mind, and soul what they need. So keep that in mind as we go through this week, as we watch the news, as we see all the things that are going on. But good things are coming, I promise, even if it feels like everybody's eyes are just bleeding. It won't be this way forever. You are amazing. I will see you later. Have a great week.